Okay,
I don't see it.
I don't either.
next. Thomas and Meredith Joyce is adjourned until 3/11/2019.
Hold on, can we just,
Yeah.
I know, just take a second here and let.
Oh, do you want to have 5 minutes?
No,
Oh.
we're the last one. I want to.
Yeah.
Go to New York.
Okay, next. Number, Jan Split Purchase Trust, 56 Gin Lane, construct accessory greenhouse and construct addition and alterations to existing accessory cottage and landscaping.
If I may, for the purposes of moving this along quickly, 56 and 72 have a combined landscape plan. And Mr. Maynard and his crew are here from London to present that.
Wow.
So
you want that, so
yeah,
what are you
to hear them
saying?
together, it just makes the most sense.
They're next to each other in the agenda.
They're next to each other in the agenda.
Okay, this one time. And 72 Gin Lane LLC, landscaping. Can I ask, okay, before, Mr. Bennett?
Yes, I'm sorry.
On this, the cottage, or what are you calling it?
Rose Cottage.
Is that over 2,000 square feet? Do you know?
Over 2,000 square feet?
It isn't?
400 square feet.
It's what?
400 square feet. Rose
So,
cottage.
but that's the structure on the separate...
Right on the road.
Right there.
Oh, yeah, what's the
Just
other
adding
thing?
36 square feet to that.
Oh,
to
that's the
enclose
other-
it.
okay, I've got
And then
this
the other
confused.
structure is a greenhouse.
Right, that's up by the road too, right?
No, it's well back.
Yeah,
It's
what's
in front of
the
the house.
next
It's
one
in front of the
down?
house. It's in front of the house.
We have one person?
Front of the house.
Go ahead, let's just get going here. I don't care, Hollander, oh, he's here.
It's beautiful.
not
I
you.
like it. You should approve it.
All right, let's
Arnie, if you'd
go.
introduce yourself.
Either of you can go.
Which are we starting with, the,
Together, because they're so integral.
all right. But you,
I think so. Just give me a moment, please. Sorry. Just so much information.
Yes,
They are, correct.
yes,
Both being open, both have jurisdiction?
yes.
do you have
Both have
posting and
that's what I was
mailing?
checking.
Handed them in.
Both have jurisdiction, correct.
Okay, go ahead.
Just for clarity, you're looking at a greenhouse and a 36 square foot addition on 56? Right?
Correct.
And a combined landscape plan on 56 and 72.
Right, with all those trees, right? Where's Charlie? Shoot,
Ready?
introduce yourself,
Hi,
sir.
my name's Arnie Maynard,
Oh, I know who you are, actually. Go ahead.
and I've been putting together the designs for the property on Gin Lane. What we're wanting to do with the landscape is to give the garden a more structured setting for the house, so it matches the formality of the house a little bit more. I can talk you through the landscape plan very quickly, because I know you've all had a...
Just go straight bill.
Yeah, okay.
We'll first identify where the property lines are, so we know which is which. Is that the dotted line?
Yeah,
Yeah, so this is the property line on this side for number 72, and the bigger property line is for number 56.
what's the, is this the beach?
The beach is here.
I got
on
it.
this side.
All right, I'm missing another house over here that has nothing to
Yeah.
do with this. That's
Yeah.
right.
So if we start at the front of the property is more structured. We've got a garden that is subdivided into different garden areas. The garden's designed to be a garden not just as a statement of the landscape, but it's a garden designed to be garden. So we're designing it to create different areas of gardens that have different functions. Within the garden, we have a vegetable garden, a vegetable parterre to one side, which is for vegetables and cut flowers. The whole point of the garden is we're wanting it to be a sustainable and very biodiverse garden. So it's not about hard materials, not about hard landscaping. It's about creating biodiversity in the garden as well. So for instance, in the big lawn area in front of the house, this area here, we're not mowing the grass, we're just mowing a strip around the edge, but we're going to have long meadows, bring in all of the benefits and the insects and things within the garden and give it a softness within the landscape, because the structure of the garden is quite a formal structure, so we're destructuring the formality by the planting that we're doing, which is very casual. We're planting in a lot of new big trees into the property, big beech trees and Chinese elms, again to give back to the property some stature with some large trees, because there's only really a couple of large trees on the property now, so we're wanting to put back some nice big large trees into the landscape. In front of the house we have a courtyard which has got pollarded trees, platanus trees that form an enclosure that when the cars are parked, when you're looking from the house above, the cars will be tucked under the trees so that we don't visibly see them. But the whole purpose of the design is to frame the facade of the house. So we have some views here which demonstrate that's the arrival from Gin Lane, so looking into the property, with a bank of trees to provide privacy between the neighbouring properties across Gin Lane. And then we've got the driveway going down to the house. And then in the next view, this is the view looking down the property from the house, looking back towards Gin Lane. So you can see the pollarded trees that form the courtyard. The courtyard is a cobble courtyard where we're growing grass. These are the pollards. We've got a square cobble courtyard in the middle, and that's all going to have grass growing in the cobbles. And then to one side we have the vegetable cutting garden, which is here, with the glass house for putting all the citrus trees in the winter. And then the driveway, as I said, the grass, the lawn areas are going to be long meadow grass with wildflowers. We've got some topiary trees in. And then finally, there's two more. To the one side of the house, we've got a maze. And then you get a view back into the courtyard with the pollarded trees. There's a rose garden and a spring garden. And then the ocean side is very different. We're trying to keep this much more open and to celebrate the large grass area. We have a slightly sunken lawn, and then all of the planting on the ocean side are native plants that we're using. But because the house is a formal house, there is some formality, but it's been clipped and formed out of the native plants. And then closer to the house, we have
What is the function of the sunken courtyard?
It's such a vast lawn.
I'm sorry to ask this.
Well, it's such an enormous...
Beauty, manipulation of
Creates a sense
land.
of place.
It's such an enormous lawn that you need to give it some scale.
It needs a dimple.
And it's also quite nice to tuck yourself out of the wind, so on windy days.
That's so true.
And it just makes the whole thing a little bit of a more human scale, because it's such a vast property and vast lawn that by bringing it in, it just helps to give it a more human balance within such a big landscape. And because the ocean is so enormous, it's nice to have that sense of smaller scale beyond. And then
It's going to make the house palatable.
finally, the swimming pool, which is, this is looking down from the house. So again, keeping this big open landscape of the lawn, swimming pool just sitting in grass. We really don't want to have hard landscaping. It's all about soft. It's about, the environment rather than imposing big, heavy, hard structures onto the landscape. And then just to one side, there's a small family garden. And that's where, in the summer, there'll be all the citrus trees and things, which then will go back into the glass houses in the winter.
And so can we do both things
Yeah, just
sort of
go
at one
ahead.
time? So Arnie and I like this orangerie in Shropshire that we had seen, and so that was our inspiration for the greenhouse that we built or proposed to build in the front, which I think if you look at Arnie's number two,
Yeah.
you'll see it sort of nestled into and materiality-wise, we want to do it all natural, mahogany windows, mahogany trim, so the whole, and bleached, and then just weathered to gray, so that it really,
Oh, that's a good
we don't want any more white.
I'm
Sorry.
sorry. What do you think?
You know,
Yeah,
just,
I think that's,
so it has a natural wood roof, all natural wood trim, all natural wood windows.
And it sort of feels and ties into the old barn next door.
Absolutely.
Which is, you know, we don't want to make it too fancy. The whole thing with the gardens, it's a fancy house.
You said that with a straight face.
But the whole way I design gardens is that I put in formal,
and kill myself.
I put in formal structure, but it all gets dressed down with the informality of wildflowers. And
right, well, in the scope of things, these orangeries.
Feel sorry for
not
the
really
landscape, but they can't
much
use a
of
leaf
an
blower.
eyesore, no matter what, it seems to me.
And then the little rose cottage up front, from the street elevation and the west elevation, we're not changing anything, but we are proposing on the, you have a before and after, so that there is the, I guess that's the east elevation, taking the double hungs and solid front door and turning it into all glass, because of Arnie's gardens are pretty enough to look at, so now we can sort of do that. And we're extending out, there's an external staircase right now that takes you down to like laundries and things in the basement. So what we proposed was to extend, which is on the south side of the house, not seen from the street, extending the existing roof line down to make that staircase within the house. And then we added the two sort of small double hungs. When you look at that south elevation, we made into one shed dormer with a larger single window. Same size as the two double hungs, but it's one large double hung window. To let light into the staircase and back into the sort of mini living quarters. It is tiny. So we added 34 square feet to the 416 square feet or whatever that are there.
Great. Does anyone have anything to say?
I do.
Go ahead.
About what percentage of the plant material we're looking on in this plan exists there today, is existing?
not very much.
Is there an existing planting plan with photographs of the existing landscape?
Like an as-built planting plan?
Yep.
No.
Well, we have a survey.
We have a survey.
Yeah.
I'd like to see in the record what this looks like from the road right now and how it's going to be changed, because this is historic district, right?
It's true, it is quite high, but nevertheless, we can.
What's quite high?
The house itself.
No, I'm talking about the landscape plan.
Oh, okay,
I'm sorry, I'm just focusing on the landscaping. I think this is beautiful. I think it's stunning. I think it's amazing someone would want to accomplish this, but I think we also have to consider what it's replacing and what the change is going to be in the historic district.
Well,
You
it's
will
great.
be pleasantly surprised.
Can I talk to this only because I was a landscape architect before, for the previous client? I think what Mr. Maynard has done is fabulous, because the people that lived there before the Beltmans were wonderful people, got older, put a lot less money into caring for the property, so many of the trees that were there are in kind of a state of decline. And there isn't much left on that property that's of any great value, and I think what Arnie has done here is to take a great old property and bring it back to life again and make it as wonderful it was for next generations.
Well, thank you.
It's a sad landscape right now.
I don't disagree. I just think it'd be helpful
no,
for the record with this much
absolutely.
work to have a photographic record of what it looks like now and what it's
And I think it makes sense.
There aren't pictures.
I mean,
It's just a landscape plan.
I've looked at the property and
I live nearby.
can attest to the fact that this is an improvement again of whatever exists there now. And, you
I'm
know,
not disagreeing. We haven't come to a conclusion. I'm asking some
You're
questions.
just dotting your i's and
not
crossing your
many.
t's.
I was also wondering,
I can show you this this is our plan with new trees we're putting in, but it has existing trees that are here as well.
yeah.
So
That's in the file.
there's an existing tree here, which is a plane tree on the border of the property, but it's dying. So it's going to have to come down anyway.
You just want a photograph for the record.
Yeah, and there's one existing tree in here, and there's a couple here. So it's very void of trees at the moment.
Let me ask, Rob, let me ask you a question. Would you be, I mean, it's still in the historic district, it's going to require a written decision anyway. Right. So it's adding, because your concern is completion of the file.
Yeah,
So can we
correct.
close it for written decision
Yes.
for submission of the so the files.
I have two other detailed questions on the landscape, and then I'll be done. These are easy to answer. The hedge that's around the perimeter of the property, I assume that's ligustrum vulgaris.
Yeah, and
Does that exist today?
Yeah, it exists, and it's,
Okay. And is the sort of hashed material in, looks like clipped hedges going toward the beach, at the dune, basically?
Yeah.
Are those also privet?
no, that's Bayberry.
Bayberry. Okay. Got it.
One question that a birdie whispered in my ear, it's sitting to my right, but it's a good question, is to what extent are the plantings and the landscaping saltwater tolerant?
All of the ones on the ocean side.
And to what extent are they native versus perhaps from your homeland?
You said on,
Native of by the
Yeah,
beach.
up front, it's, on the beach side, it's all native. And then as you get closer to the house, it becomes more cultivated, but a lot of native coming to the house as well.
I don't know enough, but I guess the question is, have you taken into consideration what some of those plants do in terms of attracting birds, bees, or whatever, that are they all friendly and it all gets along with
Some more than
everybody?
others. I mean, nature, some plants are good at pollinate, as pollinators, and other plants aren't. But it's very important that whatever we put there, I mean, it's pointless planting something that's not going to
I would think
survive,
so.
because, that's not going to do my reputation any good. So we've researched very well what goes in there, and it's about creating the right environment.
Okay, you can tell me it was Ed's idea.
Mr. Comer had another question.
Sorry, so I'm seeing these circles here as bayberry, and I'm asking about the long lines here. Are they also bayberry? Is
Yeah.
So you've had some unclipped circular bayberry?
Some natural, and then some will be clipped into, but not clipped straight. They're just going to be nice, natural rolling forms.
Okay, that's it.
Is there anyone who would like to address this situation?
Can we get an array?
oh, come on, somebody.
I think people are pretty tired by now. It's 5 to 11. I have no objections. I hope it grows.
I have no objection.
I
hope
personally
get to see
like it
one
that it
day.
obscures the house,
pleasure.
which I've never liked much.
Yeah, I
So the
know.
more you
It
can
will.
do, the better
Yeah.
from my perspective. It's actually not that easy, that house from the street, for some reason. I don't know.
It's so massive that you have to have some scale with it, of trees and things.
So
Close the application.
may I make a motion that we close both the applications for 56 Gin Lane and 72 Gin Lane for written decision by council?
Second.
Subject to
Subject to receipt of the
Of a
photographs
photograph.
of the street, of the property from the street.
Second.
Aye.
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 Good luck.
Thank you.
Wow, that is quite the undertaking.
Quite beautiful.
It's going to be.
I don't mean to insult your building, but
No, I know. We all know. It's going to be.
has there been any way to
Can you
remove
hide the
that
windows that are being offset in the facade? Because the
front?
architect
We'll talk about that later.
construct?
Yeah,
Yeah,
let's get
sorry.
going here.
No, I can't do it.
I know you can't, but it seemed like it'd be better. Next,
windows that are being offset.
I know.
Cooper's Neck Lane LLC.
big tree. You're not going to
11, but
Here we go.
Construct accessory pool house.
Correct, yes.
Good evening.
So, let's make sure we have Sandy.
Posting and mailing,
Oh, yes.
please, and state your names.
So my name is David Moore, and this is my colleague Jason Falcone,
Great.
and we are presenting a pool house, hopefully a non-controversial house.
After you sat there all that
But you never know.
it could be.
Exactly. So basically, you probably don't recall, but we have a house underway under construction at 65 Cooper's Neck, which is, well, basically this structure.
Oh, I do remember.
Right. And the pool house is situated behind the house, so you don't actually see much of it, if any of it, from the road.
Point that out on the survey.
Yeah, so on the survey,
Is there any small plans there?
I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry, we don't have, yeah. But basically, this is the
Yeah, it's a
the
big
house
house,
that's under
right?
construction, and then we're behind it. So you might be able to see a little bit from Cooper's Neck over here, but with the plantings and everything.
How big is the pool house? I'm sorry.
It's just under 800 square feet.
Yeah, 790.
794 to be exact.
So basically, it divides itself into two rooms. One which is a kind of a big lounge area. Yeah. Overlooking the pool, and then a second room which is for yoga or exercise or whatever, and there's also a bathroom.
Material?
Beg your pardon? Materials, we'll get them, but basically the main materials are painted wood trim, shingles with a solid stain. The windows are metal-clad wood windows, a tone darker from the trim to set them off. And then we have an open trellis area over here, which is wood, which just casts shadows.
Are those the same windows as on the house?
Yes. And that's about it. It's fairly self-explanatory.
Landscape-wise, we do plan to plant hedges around the entire property. So as you come along Cooper's Neck, you'll have hedges along the front, and it'll turn the corner and return back along the side. So the client is very private and wants to maintain privacy.
What are the height of the hedges?
We're proposing 6 feet along the side, and I believe 4 feet is the max height on the front.
Is that planned in the file?
Sorry, can you just orient me again on this?
Sorry, the landscape plan is in 2. So put them side by side.
All right, unfortunately, we have a match line here.
Yeah. Yeah, so you have Cooper's Neck is along here. The pool house is back here. That helps. Yeah. So the pool house is set back from Cooper's Neck. We do have some photos.
What is the thing that is just south of the house? It almost looks like a triangle of circles. Is that drainage, I guess?
In here?
No, on the south side.
Here's
That's drainage.
Well, that's
Those are drainage
actually-
rings?
This is the septic system. Yeah.
It's not landscaping.
No.
No, that is south. Yeah, right.
I'm wondering about, just to your point about the only view really being down that parking area on the south side of the property, what the planting, can you just point out the plantings that are in that zone? There's the hedge in the front.
Yeah, the hedge in the front. We have some boxwoods along here. Yeah, and then some hornbeams along here. Right.
And by the way, this property is open land at the moment. Maybe not forever, but
Don't hold your breath.
yeah,
I hope-
You're
exactly.
always talking about it.
I know.
It's quite lovely.
Let's see. Sorry. Then I had a photo of it.
Oh,
Yeah.
Question about this application? Ask if there's public comment.
is there any public comment? We're just moving ahead. This isn't, we like your pool house pretty much. I think it's kind of big, but
Great. In the absence of public comment, I make a motion that we close the file for Cooper's Neck LLC at 65 Cooper's Neck for written decision by council.
Second that.
Aye.
aye,
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
good luck.
Thank you.
Let's introduce everybody. I was going to introduce you. Okay.
134 Murray Lane LLC, construct two-story single-family dwelling with attached garage.
For the applicant, John Bennett, I've handed in this affidavit of mailing and posting. With me here is Tom Kligerman from Kligerman Barclay, the private architect, along with Pete Davis, his associate, and Ed Hollander Landscape Design. This board previously granted a certificate of appropriateness to demolish the existing residence of the property. That was submitted as part of the application. The applicant is proposing the construction of a new single-family home. Tom and Drew are present to present, and so is Ed. This is the last house on the easterly border of the historic district. Neither one of its neighbors is a contributing structure, nor is the house that was demolished.
Hi, good evening. I'm Tom Kligerman from Kligerman Barclay.
Drew Davis, Mike Kligerman Barclay.
So I know it's late. I'd like to take you through the house. I see you have the drawings. Do you want to go through the floor plan? Or
No, we are only interested in the exterior of your house.
Okay, I've never presented to this board.
Okay, sorry.
That's all right.
Late.
All that work for nothing.
Sorry if I jumped over you.
It's good for the printers. The house is largely hidden from the streets. We have some context views for you to look at that Ed will present. But this is the house, and as you approach it in the driveway, you enter the house on the side. The house has gabled roofs. It is largely shingle, but also stone. These are the materials. The shingle is here. The stone is this sort of warm beige. That's the base of the house. The windows are in a sort of pale natural wood. There are gutters in either lead-coated copper or zinc. And then the chimneys will be done in brick-shaped pieces of the same stone. Here's one of them as they rise up above the house. Double-hung windows, sort of a more house-like scale, facing the buildings across in the distance. I don't think you can really see them, but this is the look from the entrance side.
Are the windows recessed?
Yeah, they're recessed. They're recessed. This is a wood. This is a stone surround. This is a wood surround. So a combination of stone and shingle. Another view of that side of the house from the. It's upside down for me now, but from the northwest. There's a tennis court on the property that's existing. We're pushed up against. This is the south side that faces the ocean. Is a larger scale across the lawn from the beach. It's a sort of a U-shaped house. The entrance side is over here. There's a terrace formed by the sort of U-shape of the house. Again, stone and shingle roof. That's at an 8 and 12 pitch.
Tom, just a quick question, not so much on the design, but, and I can't recall from the file, but I did look at the property. Is the footprint changing from the original house?
It does change the original house.
So on the south side, how much further is it going to be to the beach?
On the south, I don't think it's any further, Ed may know better, I don't think it's any further than the south side of the existing house.
So the footprint is expanding to the north, you say?
The footprint expands a little bit to the, do we have an overlay of that? It really expands more in volume to the west.
To the west,
The
okay.
current house almost fills up the exact area where this can be, and we're kind of filling in the same box.
Okay.
With a similar
That's all
house.
The setbacks on this property are fairly restricted,
Okay,
especially with the
that's all I
tennis court.
needed to know.
So this is, as Ed says, sitting on the existing footprint pretty much.
There's the existing.
For the same, the house fills up the whole area now.
Yeah, I guess we come a little bit further south, but the existing house is sitting right under this building.
Gotcha, okay.
Since we submitted this to you a few weeks ago, we've actually reduced the size of the chimneys. We were sort of in working on the design, pulled them down a little bit and made them smaller in plan.
And how many are there? Since
eliminated
there's
one,
been
right?
some
No,
discrepancies.
there's four.
There's still four?
Yeah. There's one in the north and one in the south, the east and west, and two here. But they're lower, so they're less
Be
noticeable.
lower by how much?
3 feet, some of them are 3 feet, some of them are 2 feet.
Okay.
Yeah, and some of them we lowered as much as we could. We couldn't lower this one anymore because of it's illegal.
Right.
This one is here as part of the pyramid setbacks on the property, so it helps with that.
But it will have the same design in terms of the angled and...
Yeah.
Okay.
And the angles relate to the forms on the house, which are designed to sort of catch the light, but also from inside, instead of having sort of columns that are this shape, we've tapered them in so that the windows have a more open view to the ocean. Another view from on the ocean side. This is a glimpse under the landscape at the front door, which is on the east side of the house. You come up, there's a stone surround, the front door is tucked in there. Pergola that runs across the side of the building. And then, if you look at the context photos, these are...
Sure.
There's a...
Right, we, following the advice of Mr. Bennett, which we do always.
Is that wise?
Thank you.
That's a good thing.
You don't want to get them angry at you. No. What we did, these are kind of, there is an existing home here right now. That is a period piece. That's being nice.
It's from the 70s or something? 60s?
Maybe early 80s.
Okay, go on, sorry.
It's not the,
I know.
and just very quickly, because you want to go home and I want to go home, this is, existing and proposed views. You can see behind that's this stucco wall that runs down there. So there, it's largely...
That's Old Town Road.
Right. There's not, this is the previous house that's in there now. And it's, this is the new house. It really fills in. It's almost exactly the same, except Tom's new house is that much better looking. We can see the same thing on the viewpoints from Gin Lane. Again, there's a slight view of the roof line there. There's a slight view of the roof line there. And finally, from the beach, this is what we see currently. I mean, these are the houses along the beach.
Wow.
That's what we see now. That's what we see then.
Like no impact. Well designed, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Do you want to talk about landscape, Ed, or is it?
I'll do whatever you guys want. Do you want to hear
Is
more?
there additional landscaping plan?
Well, just, it's really just, town has it in the plans. Here, we've tried to plant as much as we can, as you had spoken to before, indigenous, native, salt tolerant, all of those things, that we can do on the property that will live this close to the ocean. It's an interesting property in that it's totally open. There is no privacy between this house and the house to the west, which is unusual, and we've just kept it the way it is. We haven't decided to try and break that up in any way.
Talk about the materials.
No interiors.
No interior.
We don't do the interior.
No?
It's not our purview for the interior.
No, the material.
Oh, the materials, I'm sorry.
If you want.
No, he already did.
He did it. That's why I thought,
You want to see that?
yes.
Any questions?
Not at this moment. Anyone from the public want to speak about this?
I just have one clarification,
Yes,
sorry.
someone is here.
Oh.
Whoa, 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 whoa.
Okay.
Elizabeth Condren. My mother lives in the house to the west, and I'm curious how the I guess you call it the footprint or lot coverage, how that was calculated and verified, because I know on the survey it looked like you calculated it with the decks in the pool separately, but the current pool is in a deck. So was anything double counted in terms of finding a permissible square footage?
All the lot coverage was done by Squires and Holden per the village code. And it's all listed very precisely on the survey with what's existing and what's proposed.
But I'm questioning how the what's existing was calculated, and are you sure it was done correctly? And how can I verify that?
Well, it's stamped by a licensed engineer and a surveyor who,
Okay.
I can't guarantee you that Squires and Holden is absolutely accurate, but...
Is this an extra copy?
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Hard to see in the
Much better. No.
There's a good question, but it all shows, and Squires and Holden's a local surveyor that did all this.
I don't need to waste your time. I just wanted to go on the record that I may have a
Those are questions you can take up also with the building department,
Okay.
because it's done by a survey, it's done within code, and we're generally accepting of the the building department's approval. We assume that it's done accurately, but if you have any questions, you can go speak to the building inspector directly. He's a very nice guy.
Or you could call him on the phone.
Great, thank you.
More importantly, do you have any comments on the architecture here?
It looks massive and very tall to me, but is it higher?
Well, I think you can see from this photo here, you know, from what is here now to what is there now, it fits within the same roof lines, actually. I mean, I think this is more
higher.
horizontal, that's a little more vertical.
Ed, it's higher than the existing house because it has to be, because it has to conform with the current FEMA.
Here we are back to the fill again.
Yeah, here we go.
So the house
FEMA.
itself off grade is not taller necessarily, but the grade is being raised and therefore...
No, it's not the grade that's being raised. I
It
have
has
to
to
meet
go
the
up.
current.
Got it. You've got to take the first floor up higher to meet FEMA. Got it. Sorry.
So is the actual height of the building
Taller.
sea level higher
I
than
mean,
the
assuming you want the
existing?
same
Yeah.
number of levels.
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
How high are the ceilings?
9 or 10 feet.
Ceiling is, I think, 11 and a half feet.
Ah, so that's a very high ceiling, okay. And also, the septic, it's very close to the property line. Is it being relocated from its current?
It's going to be replaced with a new.
There's a new innovative, one of the new IO systems, the IA, the innovative low nitrogen systems, which are so much better for water quality than the standard ones.
But that's something I'd take up with zoning.
Well, it meets all the, it meets,
On that
that's, it's
plan.
on the survey, and it has to meet Suffolk County Department of Health regulations,
Okay.
which governs all of this. That's not even the town thing, and it does meet all those codes and regulations.
The new septic system is shown on the survey.
And do you know approximately where the current one is?
I do not, no.
Okay.
No, but it has to meet the wastewater setback standards of the Suffolk County Department of Health Services.
Okay.
And it's a
So you're not
it's a
supposed to-
superior system because there is actually some treatment that happens with these new
Yep.
innovative alternative systems.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I had one quick question for the architect, if I could. First of all, I think this is interesting and ambitious, and it's challenging, and it'll challenge us to review it. But on the north elevation, on the second floor, there's what looks like maybe some vertical paneling between the windows on the second
Here?
floor? Yeah.
Yeah.
And on the south elevation, it looks like similar horizontal paneling, at least on the,
Here,
between the, yeah, underneath the windows,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
That's all done in the wood?
it's wood. This is this is color wood.
And it's just...
It has a recess, it doesn't read that well here, but there's actually a recessed panel, so there's some sort of traditional detailing within this sort of transitional style house.
Make a motion that we close the, what, you had more comments?
No, is there I find the 4 chimneys to be aggressive and discordant, really. I realize that it kind of fits with the house, but there are a lot of them. I could go with one, but I find it to be, and they're tall. I know you said you lowered them, but in the elevator,
Just
We
meeting
lowered
the
them.
tolerance.
We lowered them, and we also made them smaller.
you did?
Yeah. And
Is that representative in there? No, you're telling me these are the,
these are lower than the
What plan is in the file? Is it?
yeah,
The
not
plan in the
that.
file,
What plan
they're larger, I think, in the
No.
file. right? Did you refile it?
They were
Oh, I
replaced.
apologize.
When did that
Okay.
happen? Because
Last Tuesday?
Yeah,
Last Tuesday, and I made specific comment, no, I want,
Oh, I'm
it's a
sorry.
good question.
No, it's-
We made a specific comment that that is the only change, and it was, to be honest with you, when I saw the initial design, that was a concern that I thought you folks would have. So the chimneys were lowered, and
So this is representative of what it'll look like?
yes.
The plans in the file are dated February 15th, and they were filed on February 19th.
And they're
These
all-
are the same.
They're all functional chimneys?
They're all fine, yeah. There's a fireplace. 3 of them have fireplaces, and then one of them is for this one back here actually is for the mechanical room. So the boilers and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that was a question Chris Talbot asked, as a matter of fact.
Yep.
So the plans, yeah.
No way to relocate the mechanical so it could vent through a flue in one of the other 3 chimneys?
No, it's just in a completely different, it's over the garage, the mechanical room, and this is in the master bedroom, and there's a porch below. This is the same, this is in the living room and the family room.
Do the mechanicals need to vent through a chimney? Can they vent out
I
the
guess they
side?
could vent through a plastic tube sticking up out of the roof.
Can they vent out the
George, any
side of the
suggestions?
house?
There's a cavity space.
Can't talk George, get up. George, get up and introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm George Gavalis, Quill Theory, the builder on the project.
There's a cavity space above the garage, between the garage and one of the guest bedrooms, where the mechanical space is going to be venting out, and that's what that chimney is above there. So we have direct vents, we have makeup air pulling through into that mass, that chimney mass above that.
Do the chimneys have to be so massive? It just, there's something about this that really just, I find, the only word I know is aggressive. And it's aggressive in a part that I don't think is like utilitarian in a funny way, but for some reason you've emphasized them to an extreme in my mind.
You know, when I think about great American buildings, great English buildings.
We're in America.
Okay, but a lot of American buildings are influenced by English buildings, and you know, one of the things that's great about them is the chimneys. And chimneys, in a way, are sort of the unsung heroes of houses. People don't pay much attention to them, but it's like a brooch on a woman's dress and like that. They are actually important to the design. And in the case of this house, which is so horizontal, we wanted something to sort of break up the horizontality of the house. And that's done both with these vertical elements here, but also in here and here, but also with the chimneys. You know, this one may be able to come down a little bit more, but I think that it was too close.
They're also extremely wide, aren't
No,
they?
they reduced them.
It may be
They
just
might,
that,
on the original plan, I mean, these are massive things, are they not? They're massive design elements, from my perspective, on this house. And frankly, if it were industrial, I could see it, but I think it has some kind of a,
actually, they're not, this is the roof plan, I know you.
yeah.
They're
I'm looking, you know, I looked at the roof plan with Chris Talbot. That's why
right.
I got into some of this in the first place, because
But
I didn't like the chimneys. What can I tell you? I still don't like the chimneys. How's that? That's all I have to say, really.
Jack? I'm just curious as to what, no, I was just curious as to what people thought about the chimneys, to be very direct with you.
My first reaction was taken aback a teeny bit, but then I saw them as being an integral part of the design. Now that you tell me that they've been reduced, although I wasn't cognizant or did not take it in the actual plan, I have less of an issue with the chimneys. And when I see the beachscape, if you will, of the other house, it fits in. And those chimneys are the original or the ones per the plan?
What do you mean? These are the reduced ones that were resubmitted.
Right. So
On those comparisons you're talking about?
On these, this is all the reduced scheme. Everything's been updated to the.
So, and I don't know, maybe Charlie, maybe you can zoom in on it a bit.
Which one do you want?
The bottom one.
This is the.
Yeah.
Bottom one.
Thank you.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah, there we go.
I mean, they do stand up. I mean, if they could come down a bit more.
They're
Are you
good.
sure that's the revised version?
Yeah, that looks
No,
That's
pretty.
like the original.
No, wait. And those,
Yeah, they were bigger.
and the original.
They were taller and they were bigger.
So that's, okay.
That's the reduced.
This is the reduced version.
That's
This
the
is the
reduced
up-to-date
one.
version.
So I find them to be,
Can they be made smaller?
such a big, they are the design feature per se, almost.
They are.
I find
I
them to
agree.
be discordant and aggressive. I'll say no more.
Yeah,
Excuse me, they're not square.
Okay, I'm sorry.
They're
I
diamond
just
shaped.
did.
They're four-sided, but they're diamond
So
shaped.
from another view, they would appear much better.
Guys,
The truth is, as you move around, they
Right.
will be, if you were to fill these out as a rectangle, which would be,
Yeah, they're quite narrow. I mean, they're not.
No, there are,
if they were this size, you can see how much bigger they would be.
what do you call this?
They're diamond shaped. They're
Hexagon?
four-sided.
Yeah, what do you call, rhomboids, whatever. Diamonds, that's good, diamonds.
Yeah, but they're
the quadrangle.
quadrangles. They're quadrangles.
You know, you
Actually, there's one that is a triangle.
have a concern with the I'm just trying to see what the board
Well,
feels
here's
generally about
what
the
I
chimneys.
feel. If I were the neighbor, I would not want to be next to this house. I'm sorry. I find it's really aggressive, that.
The chimneys.
The chimneys, and there are 4 of them.
Mr. Coburn?
Yeah, I kind of
Ms.
agree.
Van-
If this one in the southeast could be shorter, and/or if the mechanical vent in the northeast could be eliminated, I think it would make a big difference.
We're going to take a look at that. We're just going to do that.
Do they have to be that big? That's the part I don't get.
We
Everybody,
could look at making them smaller, but they have a certain number of, a chimney has to have the structural element, which is usually cinder block.
right,
And then it
but,
has to have
but this is a big house and those are big
What
chimneys.
I'm worried about is that chimney, if you actually showed it out when you framed out the diamond, technically could have been a lot bigger
Yeah,
than where it is
exactly.
now. Based on where you're going to look at this, it's really going to almost disappear because it narrows out
They
based on
actually-
the angle and the
That's
direction.
right. As you move to the side, they will
I
be
think
smaller than a
making it
rectangle.
smaller, I don't think you can from a functionality standpoint.
I'm not sure we can make it much smaller either. This one may be able to get a little
Unless
shorter.
they make them bigger.
This one, but this one I
The one in the
think,
southeast.
this is the one that you're
Tom,
talking
the one
about.
on the southeast, can we make it shorter?
You could lower.
Lower. Can we
Let's-
lower the one on the
that one?
southeast?
It's a bad sign feature.
That's
because
because it's 3 feet higher than a
Just to
point
clear
10 feet
the
wide.
top of the house or the whole place burns up.
Right.
10 feet from the
Because
That's why
it is
they have
it's a wood
chimneys.
shingle roof.
Yeah,
But your point is accurate. A rectangular chimney actually has more volume.
Yes.
It's going to be twice the size.
It'd be twice the size.
Okay, so-
Mathematically.
let's see I was working
I
off.
think your photograph kind of ruined the perspective of the board. And remember, this is
Yeah.
all we have to look at. in
I
terms
should have
of-
done it with all hand gestures. There's chimney and sitting
Well,
on
it's
the
just
roof.
taking a diamond and moving it around, but
Let's see the
Yeah.
other,
I really think from different angles, you're going to see this in a
this is the
different
one I
perspective.
have trouble
But
with.
this chimney is, that opening where the flame, the smoke comes out
Yeah.
is 10 feet higher, 2 feet higher than being
Right,
10 feet
it's-
away.
So that can't come down.
It
That
can't
one
come down.
can't come down.
And that's not. the
These we could
mechanical.
drop a little bit, but these are really relatively small.
Well, if you look in this aerial photo, this kind of does show, that when you see this, you can see that your point of these things being diamond shaped, they're actually fairly small from that angle, except for that triangle. But these, I think as Curtis pointed out, they're kind of, when you look down on them this way, they really aren't as big as they appear in that rendering.
And from a material point of view, I think we tried to soften it.
I think the materials are pretty. It's the size we're talking about here. All right, well,
What would you like us to do?
I don't know. I said my piece. I have nothing more to say.
What?
Christine, we didn't.
Well, I think the one on the end looked like it could be a little bit shorter, but
I think that's the one that has a functionality.
Yeah, they can't make it shorter. The people in the bedroom will be like the Vita Scariolitis room, as far as I can tell.
They can make them shorter, but then they got to make them wider,
Is
correct?
that right?
They're going to be, if we
No, that was
square them off,
Listen to
Cool
me.
heater vented in.
if you square them off, they will be bigger.
Bigger.
There will be more volume of structure, and one of the reasons we made them triangular was because you can imagine, that at different angles, that actually gets skinnier
Yeah.
than something that's this.
They have a massive base, do they not? Don't they get thinner?
They're tapered.
Yeah.
They don't go straight, they actually taper,
Right.
which I think it's the other way around. If we didn't taper them, they'd be really big on top.
Yeah.
We've started, many buildings are bigger at the bottom, they get smaller at the top, and that's what we've done. If they weren't tapered, they would be bigger. We tapered them to sort of bring the scale of them down also.
As a visual, if Tom turns sideways, you could have him
Yes.
or you could have me.
Right, that is a good visual. I can't help it, I haven't.
Love you, Ed. Don't worry.
Well, it's just a,
Is he helping or hurting? I don't know.
Can we make Tom a little shorter?
I've said the
It's been
same thing a
tried.
lot, right?
All right, so board, it's late. What are we going to do about this?
I don't know.
From a functionality standpoint, these are your choices based on what I'm hearing. We can make them shorter, but then they'll be bigger and wider.
Right, well,
Or,
I don't think you can make it
I don't,
Can't make them shorter.
I don't mind the dimensions. I also, someone told me a long time ago who's smarter than I am about aesthetics that when in doubt, have 3 of something, not 2 or 4. And seeing those 4 chimneys from the beach just seems slightly industrial to me, like Susan said. And so that's why I'm sort of stuck on, can we find another way to vent the mechanicals, other than
Can I ask
creating a new
you a
chimney?
question of the board? Would you be okay with design if we could find a way to get rid of one? There may be a way we can go back to the client and see if we can eliminate a fireplace. I'm a little bit worried about just saying we can get rid of the mechanical chase.
Yeah.
There's smoke.
Yeah, no, don't do this.
But we could
Dangerous
see about removing a fireplace, that would be the way. I think we can't do anything with the mechanical room.
But I know enough about construction management to be dangerous. I've done a bit of it. With the efficiency of most mechanical items these days, direct venting is
You can
pretty
direct
awesome.
vent, but it's going to be off the east side of the house.
Off the east side, that's the entrance side of the house.
Right.
Oh, that's right, it's against the entrance facade. And those direct vents
But don't
tend to
forget,
be...
Maybe you
have
could
two- You're going to have 2 direct vented boilers, and then you're going to have exhaust coming out of that room too, so you're going to have 3 venting out.
You probably want that up a chimney.
And we're going to have makeup coming in from the front, the north side of that, underside of that wall.
You know, I think it would be easier for us to get the client to say we don't need one of the fireplaces.
Aesthetically, you won't see the one at the north. Aesthetically, you're going to see the one at the south.
The rendering from the beach showed all 4 of them. That's my concern.
No, but if aesthetically, you'll see the one more at the south, east side of the house versus the one at the north, which is the mechanical. Right?
Maybe you could just rethink some of this. No?
Well, what I propose is I think we can get rid of this one. The one in the mechanic room this is the beach side, by the way. All the other sides of the house you can't see because I don't know if you know the property, you come down a dog leg off of Murray Lane, it's completely buried in the block, and then you saw the view from Old Town where the chimneys we're talking about are actually far in. Yeah. However, from the beach side is when you see this. I think we can get rid of this one. I can't ask the clients to get rid of the living room fireplace or the family room, and the same with the master bedroom and the study, the porch there.
That actually might be...
But where's the roof plan? But I'm just showing you can see. So this, what we're talking about, this would stay, actually from this side, very little. You wouldn't see anything. This is the chimney we're talking about. And that's the one that really from the public right-of-way you notice.
All right, well, that's an improvement.
I don't see how we can remove the others.
Why don't we remove that one?
Remove the southeast one.
The southeast.
Along the ridge line.
Why don't we we'll say we're going to get rid of that.
Okay, that's fine.
I need to see where the base, where does it show the base? This has got all this
What do you mean,
landscaping.
the base?
Base of these chimneys, because in the
well, they're
renderings
largely
that were not
hidden.
reduced that I probably saw.
This one here is
Yeah.
the one that can't get much smaller, but that's on the side of the house.
So the one back there was the one you were taking out?
We're taking out, I'm upside down, we're taking
That
out
one.
this
That
one.
That'll create a less crowded view on that side. So you're not going to have 3, which, depending on, in the same way that the diamond shape can, at certain vantage points, make it look thin. If you have 3, 1, 2, and then 3 in the middle, on the wide side, it could look like a lot. So I think taking away 1, if the client is willing to do that, I think that's a very reasonable compromise.
No, I think what we're going to do is we'll agree to take that away because we hear what the board is saying, and we're just going to have a discussion with the client. And sometimes the client, as I say to the client, oftentimes you have another partner in the design process. So,
All
Do
right.
you want us to close?
yeah, and
Close
for just written submission, if that's okay with you. And what we would do is
But
we
you're going
would
to have to
take
put
that
new
chimney out.
plans in, right?
Excuse me?
You have to-
We'll resubmit it with that
We'll resubmit it
change.
with that
So
change.
what is the condition that we would be doing?
If it's okay, we would close it with written submission on the condition that we would remove the
What are we calling that?
I'll call it the South Ridge chimney. The other one's, there's only one other that comes out of a ridge.
And we'll give you those revised plans within
2
We
days.
could be wrong about this. And for the benefit of the client, I might want to say, I'd want to see that first. If it
Yeah.
doesn't change things, then I might, if with an honest attempt to eliminate that, if it doesn't seem to change it, I might
They wanna-
reconsider approving this plan as is.
I would not be approving it as is, but I'm only one person.
Okay.
So now what we're saying is come back in 2 weeks with another plan. We'll either give a thumbs up or thumbs down. Or is that, I don't know.
You know what?
The applicant's taking it away. Just allow the,
If we close it for written submission, we could reopen it if we felt.
You could, or the applicant could, if he
Okay.
goes back to his
That's fine.
client and totally
That's fine. Yeah. So-
persuade him that it wasn't correct to.
Any other comments from the? Okay. I'll make a motion.
You're not going to get paid.
I'll make a motion that we remand the application of 134 Murray Lane LLC to council. We close it for written decision by council.
With the condition,
With the condition
to
of the
written
removal
submission
of
of
the
plans.
chimney in the south ridge, in the middle of the south ridge,
Ridge chimney.
with that condition.
second it.
Aye.
Thank you.
aye.
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 It's going to break my heart, but I have to go home tonight.
We still have one more.
One more.
No, but
Hopefully not.
it would be too much to have all of that in one night.
Really?
Thank you all.
What?
Yeah,
Do you
thank
have
you.
everything finished? Oh, you mean
I
this?
have to go to New York. My wife and dog are waiting for me.
Heidi ho. Drive carefully.
Thank you all.
The dog will
What's
be
that?
awake, and your wife, your wife
Right,
will not be.
11:35.
With her, it's the dog and me, but that's understandable.
Yeah,
Thank you all.
thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck. Next, Town and Village of Southampton African American Museum, construction of new museum building, amend a prior ARB decision. Hi, CMAC.
Good evening, board members. I commend you for your,
No, thanks.
I don't know what to
Go
call
ahead.
it, but you're going for it. But tonight, CMX, I'm the architect representing the town and village of Southampton and the Southampton African American Museum. I'm here requesting an amendment to the approval that was dated August 6, 2016 for the renovation or restoration of the museum. The reason we're in front of you is because of the findings during the construction. I'm not sure to what extent you've reviewed what I've submitted to the board. There's a number of reports from myself, to the building department, to the ARB, from LKMA, Jet Matlika, representing the town in this process, an independent report to the town, which is submitted to the board, and also I've included Zach's report originally on the structure.
Wayne, excuse me for a second. Does this need to be renoticed? Do we need new affidavits of mailing and posting, or when we're amending an old application, is the notice in the paper sufficient?
I requested that, whether that was needed or not, the village itself advertised it. So they said that there's no need for me to send that.
That's the answer.
Okay.
It's a town and village project.
And I specifically asked the building department and Bo Robinson whether I needed to advertise this again, and he said that the town, the village has done that.
I just want to make sure
I
we
can just
understand.
attest to, first, the
right.
village owns the two properties immediately adjacent, and happens to be my office across the street, and we did get notice
Okay, great.
Okay.
of the hearings.
Good to hear it.
And I'm here to object, no.
So I'll try to make this thing short but descriptive and clarity. Basically, as you all know, we came in front of you together and we got approval for a restoration of the building. Part of that was that basically, as part of the preservation of the building, that we will be lifting the building up and building basically a new foundation, moving the existing building on top. We were quite aware that there's going to be a lot of rot in that building and a lot of replacement. My design from the day one basically incorporated a new framing encompassing the old framing in it. So that, of course, we were not exposing that original framing. We did not know the extent of the rot and damage, but we expected there would be a certain percentage of that, like any old house, and we'll be replacing that. Once we built the new foundation in place, moved the existing building. By the way, during the process of moving the building, there was such instability in that building that we had to actually create an interior new framing just to lift the house up and put it back. And also, we had not removed any of the sheathings and the finishes because these functioned almost as holding the building together. Once we moved the building back onto the new foundation, we started removing the sheathing, the exterior sheathing, the interior sheathing, and exposing the framing. Based on what I've written to you and what we've expressed and plenty of photographs and so forth, basically live infestation all over, termites and beetle post, powder post flying all over. As we cut through the first few and just kept going on and on. So at that point, once the building's framing was exposed, realizing what the situation is, we went back to the building department. We requested the inspection by the chief building inspector. He came to the site, he looked at it, he confirmed that this is a situation that has to be dealt with one way or another. He requested a report from us. We submitted a comprehensive report with a plan of action as to how we're going to be dealing with that. Basically, we said that what we're going to do is that in increments, we're going to check the building. We take down elements and see what the condition is, and if it needs replacement, we replace it. If not, we will maintain it in place. In 6 stages, we were proposing that, and we went through that, and as we basically brought down the building, we realized that there's not much left. This building was completely rotted away, live infestation all over. None of the base plate was in good condition. It was all rotted away. As I said, in our report, we have about 8 or 9 members that are left over that I've kept on site. Nothing historic about those, but we kept them on site just as evidence of what we could salvage from that existing. We went through reconstruction in that sense. I also want to shed some light, knowing that this building was designated by your board as a landmark.
First time this board's ever did that.
Pardon me?
First time this board's ever done that.
First time this board's done that, and this is in the context of a building that's not in a historic district. It was not a historically significant, architecturally significant building. The reason for designation as a historic building was based on its use and its location in the neighborhood and its extended use as a community gathering space. To that extent, that designation still is very much valid as far as its location and as far as its use in continuing as a community, whether we want to call it a museum, or in this case, it's more of a place for gathering information and building up the history of the community. We basically, going back to the guidelines of the Department of Interiors, this falls under the guideline of reconstruction. I'll quote that to you as far as what the Department of Interior states as far as reconstruction, where the reconstruction of the building is in accordance with the design. Wait a second. Okay, the Department of Interior guidelines, which have been adopted into the Village Historic Code, defines reconstruction as available when no historic material exists or are unavailable for preservation or restoration. The reconstruction of the building is in accordance with the design approved by the board and remains unchanged from its original appearance. The process by which the building was evaluated and decisions made to proceed with the reconstruction rather than the hope for preservation comply with the guidelines for the reconstruction defined as the act or process of depicting by means of a new construction the form, features, and detailing of a non-surviving building, structure, or object for the purpose of replicating its appearance at a specific period of time and its historic location. In summary, although the extensive deterioration prevented preservation of the entire structure, we are continuing with the reconstruction of the historic use designated structure, maintaining the original design, exterior form, shape, and material with all the architectural nuances addressed during the ARB board approval, while the historic value of the building and reason for granting landmark status remain undiminished. And on behalf of the museum, I request an amendment to approval.
Do you have something to say? Oh, you don't? You're just watching?
Matt Jedlicka from LKMA has also a consultant for the town of Southampton,
Right.
for
Do you
the
have anything to
CPF,
add?
which
We work for the CPF department. We were hired as the Historic Projects Coordinator.
What's your name? Could you just spell your...
Matt Jedlicka.
Matt Jedlicka. I'm an associate with LK McLean Associates. So all the different CPF projects that the town's restoring, we're involved in each and every one of them. And so the same thing with this project. Everything that CMAC has said, is true. We were on site during the removal and infestation, and
Okay, I just need to
nothing
make sure
else to
that
really add.
both the town and the village were...
So it's just as simple as transferring this application from renovation to new construction.
Restoration to
To
reconstruction.
new construction, that's the switch.
Okay.
And you had to do so because the building was
Because
basically
it fell
crumbling,
down.
which I can attest to with this.
Okay.
It was.
Does anyone have any comments? There is nothing to restore, is what they're saying.
Madam Chair, I have an observation. It's late, so I'll be brief. This building should no longer be considered a landmark because it is a new building. And we can't cloak that in these guidelines. But it is what it is. It's been rebuilt, so we're not walking that back. I would question the process. But what I'm more concerned about is what is the design that was presented and approved? Does the current building look like that?
The current building, first of all, starting answering with your last question, is exactly what was approved, which was exactly a replication of the existing structure, which if you remember, actually,
I do remember.
There were certain nuances in that, such as different roof heights in the back of it and so forth.
I do remember.
Yes.
And so my question is, the current siding on the building, which is rather
The varied shingles?
curious.
That siding also was part of the approval. We discussed that extensively. Actually, you brought an issue that the siding is not exactly what was intended.
CMAC, I'm looking at the pictures of the building, which were...
Yeah, but that was not what the ARB approved. We specifically presented a revision on that siding, and the board approved that revision.
So you're saying that the siding as it appears today
Is not as...
is as approved?
Exactly.
I actually remember, it's like two-tone.
Correct.
I
We
remember
used a combination of Alaskan yellow cedar and red cedar.
Right.
2 rows of red and 1 row of Alaskan. This was always part of our plan, and it was approved as such. Now, to the point of the building...
Wasn't it so that that distinguished the new from the old? Kind of? Isn't that the idea? Wasn't that?
I mean, that definitely is one
Okay,
difference between the old and
I realize that now
new.
the change is that
but-
it's all new. But I believe that the sort of understanding I had at the time was that you were adding on to the, quote, historic, to the old barber shop, and that therefore the add-on was distinguished so that it wasn't appearing to be old.
Well, that's one interpretation.
Yeah.
The other interpretation that at the time of the ARB hearing I was here was that basically this is a new use for the building. This is a museum
Okay,
right now.
it's a similar
And that
thought.
basically, in the context of it being a museum, it has to be something more than just a barber shop that
Right,
used to be sitting
okay.
over
Yeah,
there.
I guess that, I think I voted on it.
And Zach actually mentioned that there are no examples of this type of undulation of cedar, and I oppose that. Basically, I said that in this village we have numerous different variations of shingle patterns and so forth, and this is one example of it. As a new introduction to the old building, yes.
Right. Okay.
But it was approved,
That was approved, and was the brick,
and the brick was approved as a...
brickwork was approved?
All the front brick was approved, all the front brick, nothing has changed from the plans that were
What
approved.
is standing today
Is exactly
Dimensions and materials are the
appeared on drawings, then
But do you need to, so what about with the town with the landmark
let me
part?
ask-
Is that
let me
not a
ask-
concern?
the town required that the village landmark the building so that it, the town,
Could get the
Community
CP,
Preservation
right.
Fund, could purchase the property, because it's not open space. It was a historical building, and that was the enabling.
Right, to get this thing going.
Actually, that's not correct.
Light on this.
That's
This
true.
was not
They
a
applied
historic
for
building.
historic, I believe it was a historic funding.
Yeah, they purchased the property under the CPF, under local park and recreation site, open space, historic structures,
not
a
open
general provision under the CPF. It was then later that the village and the town both recommended this board consider landmark status so that they could obtain town funding through the CPF program for the restoration.
If I may add, this was also presented and confirmed by the board attorney, Bo Robinson. The driving force for the building nomination as a landmark status was its history as a center of community activity, its geographic location facilitating such interaction, and duration of the owner's business. Criteria identified in Code Section 65-3A, number 1, 2, and 5. As the building lacked any significant architectural characteristics, nor represented the work of a significant designer, the nomination did not qualify under the criteria of 65-3, numbers 3 or 4. These are significant differences because the historic restoration of the building, distinguished from the historic preservation, does not materially affect its historic value. Demolition and reconstruction of this building differs from the loss of a building valued for its architectural style or characteristics, such as the Halsey House on South Main Street, whose loss would be irreplaceable. So what I'm trying to say here is that the historic status or landmarking was based on its use, not based on its architecture. And to that extent, we are extending this use. We are not eliminating this use. So the designation of a landmark is still valid to that extent.
Right?
I think if you go back, and I saw you reviewing the plans a moment ago, if you go back, I think all the exterior changes are exactly as what was built.
Right.
What was there, and what I heard the testimony tonight is that there were structural components intended to be utilized to the extent they could be salvaged or were salvageable and from an engineering standpoint. And Zach, if I recall, I'm looking at just your report in there. It was your advice that it was advisable for the board to retain a structural engineer for a report. If this building should be open to public use, it is doubtful that the current construction can manage the structural standards of the present building code. So it was even acknowledged at that time when you were considering this matter that the structural aspects needed to be really reviewed and understood in engineering, and I'm sure this is where the engineers come into play. So certainly the town has been on top of this along the way, as well as the building department. Unfortunately, there was some discussion of how that should have come to your board's attention while the decision-making was
My
being
only
made.
concern on this, I accept everything you said, and I think it's great the project is going forward. I'm not that concerned with the fact that it's new framing and construction versus what we all expected would be at least partially old framing and construction. I just don't understand why we're hearing this now. We either should have heard it before any actions were taken, or we shouldn't be wasting time on it now, with all due respect. Because if this board has any purview on it, it shouldn't be to check a box after decisions have been made. So somewhere, and it's not a criticism of you, but somewhere along the line, whether it's the building department or someone else involved in the project, a step was missed that I'm sure it wasn't intended to be disrespectful to this board, but we really shouldn't be here. We either should have been here with a quick and easy application with these facts 4 months ago, or we shouldn't be here tonight, in my opinion. That's my only comment and concern, and I'd like to see this type of situation avoided in the future with maybe some guidance or recommendations from village council to members of the building department if necessary, or...
Well, that has been accomplished. This
Okay.
has been, a clear example. The change in the building inspector, Chris Talbot is now fully aware. You had a similar application on Hill Street, similar issues. Those two applications have been very clear that if there's any change in any of the conditions of this board, let alone the zoning board or the planning board, who also may have similar conditions. If there's any change in those conditions or the specifications of which this board was approved the plans or represented, then it's automatically required to go back to that board for consideration. So that message has been so stated. So nonetheless, we are here sort of after the fact to try to.
We're here in 7 minutes, turn into a pumpkin, so let's have a motion. Is there any more discussion?
No, but
Good.
you'd have to have a written decision.
Yes, someone has to make a motion.
I'll make a motion that we refer the application of the town and village of Southampton regarding the African American Museum to council for written decision.
I second the motion.
To close.
To close for written decision.
Close for written decision, excuse me. Aye.
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 Everyone voted aye.
Okay.
Now I need a motion to close.
I make a motion that we close this meeting of the Board of Architectural Review and Historic Preservation on February 25th, 2019.
I second the motion.
Aye.
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 Aye.